evening and welcome back to We the People Prepping. If you're new here, I ask that you would please subscribe to my channel. Hit the little bell icon so you'd be notified whenever I upload new content. If you are returning, welcome back. Tonight I want to talk about the crisis on the border and how it all started and what all's happening right now. Okay, Biden says that he did not cause the crisis at the border, that people are surging the border because of Trump. Okay, now we all know this is BS, and we can prove it just by watching the videos of the things that he said prior to even getting nominated for the Democrat nominee to run for president, and the things that he said after he became president, and the things that he did after he became president. For instance, stopping the construction on the border wall and reversing Trump's immigration policies. Watch this.
I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum. They deserve to be heard. That's who we are. We're a nation that says if you want to, and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
Now, we all knew that Biden was going to screw stuff up, especially the border, with everything that he'd said about immigration, and, a lot of the people that voted for him, if that's what you want to call it, I guess they didn't realize this.
That elections have consequences, with the biggest surge in illegal migration in more than 20 years, thanks to Joe Biden's reckless rhetoric and policies. Yes, we're looking at illegal migrants on the Mexican border with Joe Biden t-shirts waiting to cross. The numbers are staggering, with the US on track for 2 million migrants.
Now, okay, as you all heard, they're projecting 2 million migrants by the end of the year. Okay, so where are we going to put all of these undocumented illegal immigrants and the undocumented children? I mean, we already don't have room to put any more of them as it is. I mean, just look at this.
It is so crammed that people are on top of each other with no social distancing. This facility we're looking at has a capacity of 80. It is currently holding over 700 people. And there are many more like it, so much so that the government is spending more than $86 million US on hotel rooms for migrants.
Yes, you heard that right. $86 million to house illegal immigrants who have absolutely no right to be here, who technically are not covered under our Constitution, because our Constitution is for the people of the United States, not for people of other countries. Okay, so we can afford to put these people up in a hotels at taxpayers' expense, but we can't afford to house our own U.S. military veterans, people that served our country, living on the streets, no food, no shelter, but yet we will provide it for these other illegal immigrants. Not for our citizens, but for illegals. Doesn't make a whole lot of damn sense, does it? Then on top of all that, you have these people, they are being brought up here by coyotes. They're paying people to bring them to our borders and get them across the borders. A lot of them have family here in the U.S. They're paying for it. Now, these people are being, how shall I say, trafficked, as far as they're carrying drugs into this country for cartels. They are coming into this country as indentured to the cartels, so that means that they're going to be either sex slaves or sex trafficked or any number of other things. So, I mean, here, you can see for yourself.
Traveling by bus, by boat, and even by plane, the smuggling trips can cost thousands of dollars per child and are often financed by parents or relatives already living in the U.S. Reuters interviewed over a dozen self-identified smugglers who said some migrant children have even been used as a decoy for the cartel's drug trafficking operations. Almost 10,000 minors from Central America crossed the border illegally in February, nearly double the previous month's figures, according to U.S. Customs data. The spike comes after a shift in U.S. border policy when President Joe Biden announced his administration would not bar unaccompanied minors from entering the United States.
Okay, so because of Joe Biden's announcement of his policies and his repeal of Trump's policies, we can see that the illegal immigration has amped up to twice, if not more. Actually, by now it's probably 4 times as much as it was in 2019. Okay, and because of his policies, we have people being smuggled into this country, and stuff like this is happening.
You've probably seen this horrifying video released by a Border Patrol chief showing smugglers dropping young children just 3 and 5 years old 14 feet over a border wall, then abandoning them in the New Mexico desert. El Paso.
Now, there have been several instances of things like that happening where they're dropping them children. Those 2 children there were 3 and 5 years old. Okay, and then running off and leaving those children in the desert by themselves, unable to fend for themselves. Luckily, the children were found by Border Patrol. Just today, we had Border Patrol in Texas, I believe it was, found a 10-year-old boy by himself. Okay, and when they interviewed him, he said that he had traveled up there with his family and a group of people, and then he fell behind and they just left him. Okay, so, and then what was it, last week, I believe, or so, you had smugglers toss a baby into the river, and Border Patrol had to save the baby. It was just an infant. Okay, so you have some pretty despicable things going on. How many of these people don't even make it? How many of these children don't even make it to our borders because they get left behind by the coyotes, or they get raped and murdered, or whatever, what have you? How many of them do not make it? But yet everything's supposed to be better for these people, and this is supposed to be a much more humane administration than what Trump had. Whereas Trump, what they did was, when they show up at the border, no, they wouldn't let them in. They would find their parents where their parents were at, and they would fly these children back to their parents and make sure that they were reunited with their families. And others that came to the border seeking asylum were held in Mexico until such time as they could go through the proper channels. There was no leaving them on the other side of the damn wall to starve or nothing like that. And then, it's just gotten totally out of hand. What happened to all the liberal outcry about children in cages, stuff like that? You had celebrities and other politicians and so forth that were calling Trump a monster and all this stuff for putting kids in cages, but in reality, those cages had been created by Biden and Obama. And now that Biden is in the Oval Office, it's suddenly not a big deal. It's no longer kids in cages. They're being put in pods. Now, I don't know how many of you know too much about a jail cell anymore, but if you go to jail, it's no longer considered a jail cell. it is considered a pod, and they put a large group of people in a pod together. Okay, it's no longer a jail cell. Sound familiar? They're calling these cages pods, these cells pods. Okay, they're a jail cell, and they're overcrowded beyond belief. Okay, just watch this.
Under Trump, it was concentration camps, it was the national disgrace, and under Biden, they're holding facilities, and we shouldn't be leaking about what's happening in there. It's utterly shameless. As the number of migrant children in detention has more than tripled, the very same people who saw kids in cages as the biggest crisis facing the US are suddenly silent. Some facilities are over 900% capacity. And during a pandemic, we have people squeezed in these cages together. But of course, under Biden, they're not cages, but just holding facilities.
Yeah, see what I mean? Now, you tell me, who's responsible for this crisis? Trump or Biden and the Democrats? Because Trump had everything under control. We stopped seeing these big surges of people. You know, we had an agreement with Mexico to hold them over on that side. Any children that were unaccompanied got returned to their parents via the U.S. government would fly them back to their home and reunite them with their parents. You know, now there were some kids, like 545 children, that we, the United States, could not find their parents, probably because their parents are already here in the U.S. and they couldn't find them because they were here illegally. Anyhow, you know, on top of all that, we have terrorists that have been trying to sneak across. You know, they've caught a few. But here's the thing. According to the media, the amount of people that get by every day are number in the thousands, okay? Don't get caught. So how many people, how many terrorists, gang members, you know, all these kinds of people have made it across the border and not got caught? For every 1,000 that we catch, there's 1,000 that we don't. Okay, they just come into this country, they disappear. You know, they're a lot of them are children, and they are being sex trafficked. So Biden is not helping in any way, shape, or form the people of these countries. If anything, he's made things worse by inviting them to come here, because he's put their lives in peril. You know, he is opening the borders to drugs, to sex trafficking, and everything else. So here's the thing. Biden, you are responsible for every death that has taken place along that trip. You are responsible for every bit of the drugs that came across, and you are responsible for every bit of the sex trafficking that has come through there, as well as any terrorists that may have gotten through. Okay? To me, you are a traitor to this country. You and every other Democrat are traitors, and you all should be removed from office, no questions asked, impeach you all, throw you all in prison, throw you under the prisons, because that's where you belong. You're nothing but a bunch of damn criminals, and you don't deserve any freedom, especially since you're trying to take our freedoms. Anyhow, this has been Dan. Y'all have a good night. God bless. And remember, I hope each and every one of you has PTSD. Preps to survive disasters. Okay? That's what we all must have. We all have to be prepping to survive disasters. So make sure that you have what you need to survive what's coming. God bless y'all. Have a good night. I'll talk to you later. Bye.